Hey, I'm Walter, Communications Director here at the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and with us today is our Senior Legislative Representative, Maria Freese. Yay. Welcome.
Thank you, Walter. It's always nice to be here.
I'm really glad you're here this week in particular, Maria, because the Social Security Trustees came out with their much anticipated 2026 report. And the trustees say the Social Security Trust Fund reserves will become depleted in 2034 if Congress takes no action to prevent it. And that's something of concern to us. We say it's time for Congress to act to shore up the system without cutting benefits. Why, though, do some media outlets rely on the figure that it's going to become depleted in 2032? What's the difference, and why do we more rely on the 2034 figure?
Sure. Well, part of the reason is because the 2034 figure didn't change from last year.
Right.
And so that's not really news. So that outlets pick the date that moved up by 1 year. The difference is this. The Social Security trust funds, they're actually two separate trust funds. People don't necessarily realize that. One is for retirement, the other one's disability.
There we go.
And so the date that the press has been reporting is the retirement fund alone. We use the combined dates for the two funds, although they are separate entities, and the combined fund date is 2034, and it did not change from last year.
And it did not change. And the Social Security system could still pay 83% of benefits even if Congress doesn't act, which of course we're urging that they do.
That's right.
Maria, this trustees report was interesting because the trustees actually blamed some of the pending shortfall on Trump's policies. So which policies did the trustees say are contributing to Social Security's financial strain?
Well, they identified three separate contributors. The first one is the fertility rate. Basically, Americans are having fewer babies.
That's not Trump's fault.
That's not
We'd
Trump's
love
fault.
to blame Trump for everything.
Can't blame him for that. In fact, that's not even an American-only thing. That's happening globally. So the other two factors are immigration and tax policies, the big ugly bill, as we call it.
Big ugly bill.
Yeah. So on immigration, because they have been not only getting rid of undocumented immigrants who have been hardworking, who pay into the system but then can't collect from it, so we actually benefit from them financially in the trust funds. They have also clamped down on legal immigration.
Right.
And those two factors have made a difference in the trust funds.
Because you have fewer people paying into the system, period. Immigration goes down, then revenue into Social Security
and
goes
they
down.
do tend to be younger, so there are more of them that are likely to be in the workforce longer.
The big ugly bill, as we like to call it, what did that do to put a strain on Social Security? You mentioned tax policy, but it's basically the senior tax deduction that he put in place without paying for it, by the way. And that means also less money coming into the system, right?
Yes. Well, despite what he has said repeatedly, he did not repeal the tax on Social Security.
No.
That would have wiped out the entire income stream that comes from that tax. That did not happen, largely because Congress wasn't going to go along with it. So what they did was they added an additional tax deduction that seniors can use to lower their total income, because the Social Security tax is based in part on your total income.
Right.
It both lowered your income, which lowered your income taxes, but by lowering your income, it also lowered the amount of money you're paying in Social Security tax.
Right.
Because the base that it's taxed against is now smaller.
There we go.
And frankly, we were expecting, that's why many of us were expecting that the insolvency date would move forward.
Now, we say with the trust fund projected to become depleted in the early 2030s, the time for Congress to act is now. We don't much like the Republican proposals for changing Social Security, right? So we're talking largely raising the retirement age, means testing, lower COLAs, and even talk of privatization. This Monday, you had Speaker Johnson saying that Social Security and entitlements are the problem, and Republicans will have a plan next year to adjust them. Why does that concern us? And what are they talking about there?
Well, number one, they don't really have proposals because they're afraid to put proposals on the table because they don't want to bring new revenue into the program. So what they're talking about is benefit cuts.
Right.
And they don't want to admit that they want to do benefit cuts. So they talk about, oh, we're going to reduce waste, we're going to reduce fraud, even though there isn't very much fraud in Social Security. They try to cover it up with a number of different euphemisms that they use. So now the new euphemism is, we're going to adjust. We're going to fix.
Right.
And if they're not going to add new money to the program, the only thing they can do is cut benefits, because there simply is not enough. If you're not willing to raise revenue, you have to cut benefits by at least 25% in order to stabilize.
There you go, and that's worse than just letting them automatically be cut when the trust fund becomes depleted.
And that's according to the trustees.
Thank you, Maria. So, of course, we favor demanding that the wealthy pay their fair share by adjusting the payroll wage cap and maybe subjecting some income, some investment income,
that's right,
to Social Security taxes. But we talk about that a lot, and we'll talk about it more in the future. I do want to get your take on a hearing today on Capitol Hill, where Social Security Commissioner Frank Bisignano testified in front of two subcommittees of the House Ways and Means Committee. And he's very slick, and he bobs and weaves a lot, but he said several things about the Social Security Administration that struck me as misleading. One, he said he inherited a mess from Biden. That's really not true. That they didn't shut down any services facing clients or customers. I don't believe that's true. They didn't close any field offices, and that they have best-in-class performance and a fully motivated workforce. Doesn't seem true. What were your takeaways from his testimony?
Well, he is a very good salesman, and he does a very good job of staying on message and making sure that all he talks about is the numbers and the statistics and the improvements that they claim they have done.
That they claim.
But they fudge the numbers in order to get to some of those.
All the time.
And most of them we probably don't even know about. The ones we know about because the Inspector General has issued reports which were partially sanitized before they were released, but they still show that the numbers that they are claiming are not the real numbers.
It's the Inspector General's reporting that tells us that things aren't as rosy as they say, but it's also customers' experiences as reported in the Washington Post, for instance, multiple times. People are not happy with the service they get, are they?
That's right. No, clearly they're not. Their experiences are so different from what the commissioner is reporting. And so when they say that they've improved the average speed of answer, for example,
on the phone lines,
that's because if you get shunted to a bot, or if you tell them you want to get a call back or whatever, they count that as counting zero amount of time at all.
Right.
So they have these kinds of fixes all the way through there. And so they keep claiming that there's nothing to see here. Service is perfect.
It's great.
Everything is wonderful.
Yeah.
And yet
best in class.
And yet when people try to actually call the 800 number, they can sit on hold for 45 minutes.
And they give up. They don't get their issue resolved. But they don't count that in the metrics. I do want to thank you for being here, Maria, as always, and we'll see you in a few weeks, because we rotate through our experts here on Capital Quick Takes, and we have great experts. I do want to remind you that we have launched a new voter education campaign called Social Security on the Ballot, which you can read about on our website, ncpssm.org. All right, thanks again, Maria.
Glad to be here, Walter, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Check you later.